The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not necessarily those of its sponsors, or of Microsft Corporation, its partners, or employees. .NET Rocks is a production of Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content. Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter. Hey, Rockheads! I'm not Karen, so get over it and listen up. It's time for another stellar edition of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Rory Blythe. This is Jeff Maciolik standing in for Karen Cavallero, here to announce show number 65, recorded at Microsft TechEd in San Diego, California, during the week of May 23rd, 2004. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter, and now offering hands-on VB.NET and ASP.NET classes remotely. Online at www.franklins.net. And by Data Dynamics, makers of ActiveReports.NET. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.datadynamics.com. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, Microsoft Technologies in-depth for IT managers and developers. Online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the man wearing a t-shirt that says, "It's okay, Rory was invited," Carl Franklin.
Thank you very much, and welcome to another stellar edition of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers. I'm your host in TechEd land of San Diego, California this evening, Carl Franklin, and my compadre Rory Blythe is right here with me. How you doing, Rory?
Doing pretty good. You know, looking out the window, we got a pretty decent view up here, actually.
Yep, we're in the Hyatt.
We're at the Hyatt.
Yep, and we're doing a show at TechEd. So we decided we didn't really know what to expect when we came down here, and we just knew we were going to do a show from TechEd. So we had two .NET Rocks sessions scheduled. We did one already, which was a little strange recording-wise. But what we also did is we had this Cabana session, which hasn't happened yet as of this recording, tomorrow. The Cabana is this area where there's a lot of small meetings going on between, small groups of people, usually with product teams. And there's like couches and sofas and whiteboards. And it's good because if you can get FaceTime one-on-one with project leaders and groups at Microsoft, but it's not good for like one-to-many kind of lecture things.
There's a lot of noise up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise, and you can't hear what the presenter is saying if you're too far away.
It was a good idea, but the implementation maybe not so hot.
Yeah, the implementation for specific things, like lecture-type things, just don't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sort of come and hang out. That works really well. So we ended up, sort of wondering what to do. And we decided to just take out the video camera and walk around and talk to people. And, talk to some of the guests that have been on previously, some of the RDs that were at hanging around the booth, some rock stars like Don Box we caught up with. And we decided to make .NET Rocks the movie.
Or at least .NET Rocks the documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I think .NET Rocks the movie, I think about Star Trek, where you have all the episodes.
Like fiction.
Yeah, you have all the episodes when all the doors open were cardboard, but then you got the movie where everybody has a nicer perm, and they have nicer uniforms, right? It's still the same stuff, but everything's just really nice. Whereas this was more of an impromptu,
right.
Let's just go out and see what we can muster up.
We're not looking for V'ger, for example. Okay, I'll let that one slide by.
Yeah.
So we actually got some great tape, and we're going to turn it into a movie. But what we're going to do tonight is sort of play the soundtrack of some of those cuts, and so you can hear the things that we said. We're gonna mix it up with some talk from our BOF session, and it should be fun. But anyway, before we do that, we have several standard bits to get out of the way, and let me just start by asking you how things are going for you lately, Rory.
Wow. I mean, I kind of started my real conference life with Chris Sell's XML DevCon.
Right.
And that was a nice way to kind of get my feet wet.
And then the PDC.
Right? Yeah, because then there was the PDC, and then I had a few dev days, and then we went down to Orlando, and now I'm down here. We had Dev Connections over there. And conferences are just strange. They're really fun.
Yeah.
But they're so weird because you make these friends that you only see at the conferences, and you start to believe that they're part of the conference. You think that, like when somebody packs up their booth and sticks it back in the bins, that they're actually sticking your friends in there with them and just moving them to the next location. I mean, on the way home tonight, I saw Benjamin M. He's an RD from, I think he's from London. Australia, but he's living in London.
Right.
And I just see him at conferences, and I love seeing him. I love running into him.
Then you go back to Portland, and
he's gone, and he's back in London, and I'll see him again, in some other city at some other point in time.
Yeah, Rocky Laka and I were
totally
having a discussion tonight at a party that we were discussing at another party in Orlando, and we just sort of picked up where we left off. It's very strange. You just go from these cities to cities, you meet the same people over and over again.
Well, it's surreal, really.
It is surreal, right? Because there's no other context in which you see these people. Yeah. Except in pictures on the web or whatever. And,
I've also learned a few things about San Diego bike taxis. I mean,
God.
these guys are
terrible.
Jerks, all right? You're walking from, we're at the Hyatt, which is maybe 3 or 4 minute walk from the convention center. It's once you've done it 9 times, it's not so cool, but it's not that far. So these bike taxis are always waiting on the parking lot, and they got all these rude guys.
Hey, want to ride?
Like, yeah, you want to ride, buddy? It's like they all have to pick up. Come on. They have to pick up like East Coast accents, right? You want to ride, buddy? So they can sound tough. And and I'm thinking, what? I'm supposed to pay you to take me 500 feet to the convention center? And so I'll hear him say, okay, how much? $10. What? What does that come out to? Like $120 an hour?
Yeah.
And I'll just say, yeah, no thanks. Then you just have some guy go, well, you're a jerk. What did you say, Carl? These guys must have all read this.
They went to the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People school.
Yeah, they're really
How to earn
salesmen.
a living on the street as a taxi. Yeah.
So needless to say, we have not been having anything to do with these guys.
Is it? No, you were talking about some guy who had an experience where he was just walking down the street here. Some guy rolled...
John Osborne. He's out at O'Reilly. John Osborne is out at O'Reilly on the East Coast. And he was walking around San Diego 3 days ago, I want to say. And it was about 8 o'clock in the morning. He was by himself, just walking along, minding his own business. He's a really nice guy. He doesn't look like trouble at all. He just a really cool guy. And this car pulls up beside him. The windows roll down. And this guy shouts out the window, hey, buddy. And then John says, yeah? And the guy says, you're not from here. And then John's just like, well, you're right. And the guy says, why don't you leave? And then he just rolls up the window and drives off. Yeah. I mean, what's up with that?
We also saw people like shouting down with Microsft, outside. I heard a rumor that there was that happening.
Well,
it's not like there's people protesting Microsoft outside TechEd. It's not like that at all, but just random incidents of nutcases are, just sort of popping up.
Well, there's San Diego's not a huge city, right? It's not like LA, which is how I was thinking of it.
Yeah.
It's a much smaller place. So I think that people here kind of have more of a community feel, and they're kind of doing the whole small town. It's not a small town, but they're doing the small town.
Yeah, they sound
like the pod people when they recognize you and they point at you and they go, ah! We're getting some of that stuff going on. So that's been a little weird. I wanted to say though, I liked your reaction to the bike cab guys today.
Oh yeah.
The guy's like, hey buddy, you want to ride? And Carl.
Oh yeah, I go, hey, how you doing? I like wave to him, hey buddy, how you doing? He goes, all right, how you doing? And I said, great.
And he's like, so you want to ride?
You want to ride? I go, no. I just wanted to say, all right, you're doing a great job. How you doing? I'm hoping you're having a great day.
You got to get your revenge in little ways, But yeah, those guys are jerks.
Now, I want to we should also say that NetIQ, the company, sponsored during the show, during the day, their own guys to drive for free people back and forth from the conference for free.
And they're nice.
They're nice guys.
Yeah.
They're actually nice. And it's also free, so they're not, pressuring you for $1.
Yeah, right.
But after the show
10.
gets out at 4 o'clock or 4:30 or whatever it is, then, the regular bike cabbies take over. And those are the guys we're talking about. You know, the guys that NetIQ hired were actually really cool. And I've actually taken a cabbie over there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm carrying big bags and stuff. So we got that off our chest. So it's been at least 2 weeks since we've read any mail, because the last show we were on vacation last week.
Yeah.
And the week before that was when my hard drive crashed.
Right.
So I didn't have all the mail. So I got all my hard drive back and everything's cool. So we have actually some mail from Days of Yore. And one of the emails that I'm going to read, we actually read before, but and it's the first one. But I didn't have an answer then, and now that the cat is out of the bag, at least on a particular product, which I'll mention, we can answer it. So this was from Andrew Bibby. And he says, "Hey guys, first up, loving the show. Been listening for about 30 shows now, and it just gets better. I listen at work, and it sure beats concentrating on whatever dull piece of work I'm supposed to be doing. Carl, dude, you rock. I've been a big fan since Carl and Gary's. That was you, wasn't it? Yes, that was me. And Rory, dude, you are funny, and your girlfriend is hot. Good work."
And I wish they'd stop saying that. No, what I will say is you've got good taste. All right.
Yes.
About the girlfriend. I don't know about Carl and me, but you got good taste about my girlfriend.
Down to my question. One of the worst tools I use every day is Visual Source Safe. I've read that VSS is getting an overhaul in Whidbey. Please tell me if this is true, and if so, do you have any info on it? Anything you can tell us? Thanks for all your efforts in putting together a great show. All the best, Andrew, VB developer, Sirius Group, that's SIRIUS, Birmingham, UK. And Andrew, yes, before we said no comment, now we can actually talk about it. We actually talked to people on the show floor today who were talking about it, so we're just going to let them answer it. But yes, there's a new product that's coming out in the Whidbey timeframe that includes project management and things for working in teams. That is a managed code implementation. It totally rocks. Everybody's really excited about it, and now we can talk about it. So listen for that during the show. And I, for one, am very excited about it.
And relieved.
Relieved, now that we can say what it is. This next one is from Denton, and he doesn't have a last name. Denton is his name. And I swear to God, that's his email, Denton, and he signed it Denton. So maybe it's his first name and last name, kind of like Mork, you know? Is that your first name or last name? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Just listening to the latest show about code generation, and wanted to let you know that gas is $1 per liter here in Australia at the moment, which works out to about $5 per gallon.
Jeez. Are those Australian dollars, though?
No, $5 US.
Whoa.
That's incredible. We think we have it bad, right? Keep up the great work and keep those weirdos Googling. Denton. And let's see. The next one we have here. This is from Richard Kiely. And he says, Carl, I'm a great fan of your .NET Rock show and listen to it as often as I can to learn new things about the .NET programming world that I have not yet discovered. I especially like the Kathleen Dollard show on code generation. Very, very cool. Bought the book, and I just wanted to let you know of a program that Microsoft has in regards to universities that was hinted on the last show, but not accurately depicted. It is called MSDN Academic Alliance, and we have a link to it on that show. What it involves is the IS or CS department purchases an MSDN-AA, Academic Alliance, license for their students to use. What is surprising is the low cost of $800. This is the same price as the academic edition of the MSDN subscription. Yes, it does exist. Just thought you would like to know and help spread the word on the show. Great, huh? By the way, I am in one of the user groups that Russ Fassino frequents down here in Tampa. I understand that he taught on your staff at your company. If he is a representative of the level of quality that your company demands, then I must someday attend one of your classes in person. Thanks, Richard Kiely. And I just want to say, Richard, how you doing? All right? Excellent. Finally, we have one that we just got today. Those were from earlier. This is from Andy Scrace. I think it is SCRASE. Hey, Carl and Rory, have you read Eric Lippert's very funny blog posting on Google referrals here? And he gives the link. By the way, thanks for the show. I am a longtime fan. I used to go for a lunchtime run and listen to DNR on my MP3 player. Now I need a 2-hour mountain bike ride at the weekend just to listen to it. DNR gets you fit. All the best. Andy Scrace, South Brighton by the Pacific Ocean with DSL and lots of Wi-Fi high spots. He just had to add that, and he's in Christchurch, New Zealand. It's those New Zealanders again.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the thing he's talking about?
The Google Weirdos-y thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people have come up to me at the conference and asked me if I'd seen that. And, yeah, I have, you know.
What do you think?
I wish I had thought of it. No, it's good. It's fun. It's good stuff.
Cool. And speaking of Google Weirdos, now it's time in our show when we do the segment called The Google Weirdos.
Weirdos, 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 weirdos,
Google Weirdos.
weirdos, weirdos,
Weirdos, weirdos.
Google Weirdos, weirdos, weirdos,
Weirdos, weirdos.
weirdos, weirdos,
Weirdos, weirdos.
Google Weirdos, weirdos, weirdos.
So, Rory, what is Google Weirdos?
Google Weirdos. Man. For the 900th time. I don't mean to drive you people nuts, but you got to remember there's new people listening each week, and Google Weirdos is going to be a bit of a shock if they don't know what it is. So,
Right.
Google Weirdos is the result of me looking through the referral logs for my website, neopolian.com, neopolian.com.
Right.
And I go through to see how it is that people are getting to my site through Google. And I typically, when I'm looking through this stuff, I find some really out there searches, things that obviously were not intended to arrive at my site.
Strange things.
Weird things, right. And I like to take those particular searches, compile them all together, and roll them into the segment called Google Weirdos. And as this segment has grown in popularity, people are groaning now. They're like, okay, Roy, we've heard this a million times.
No, but there's a lot of people who have not.
So as the segment has grown in popularity, people have begun to contact me through Google Weirdos, using it as a cheap sort of one-way email system. And I call those particular searches the shouts out, and I like to, or the shout outs. I don't know what it is. You pluralize something.
Sure.
And I like
Shouts
to read
outs.
those first. Shouts outs.
There's no mistaking it then.
Yeah. So here we go with
what
the
are
shouts outs. The shouts outs for today are Rory only went back to Portland because he was not getting any. Any what? Cookies?
You gave him all of that guy on the plane.
Yeah. Any ice cream? I mean, you're going to have to be more specific. All right. The next one is Rory Blythe, come back. I don't know. That must be somebody out in Connecticut. I don't know who it is.
Must be Joe.
Yeah. Could be Joe.
Yeah.
Could even be Jeff.
Could be.
Sound guy. I miss Jeff, actually.
Yeah.
I really do miss Jeff. Could be my buddy Chris Jackson. I don't know who it is, but somebody out there. And whoever it is, I'll be back sometime to visit. Next one is, Rory, please don't drink my blood. And if you'd stop putting it in the fridge, then I'd stop drinking it, okay? This is a two-way street.
Like, how are you going to get it? You know?
I have my ways, Carl.
Okay, well, we won't go.
And
he's not gay.
And so the last time that we did Google Weirdos, somebody put a search in for Rory Blythe wears a monocle and rides a unicycle to work.
Right, which we actually, many people don't know because they don't scroll down that far.
Right.
But Jay Monroe from techtunes.com actually drew a caricature of you
So
riding a unicycle, wearing a monocle, in a German pith helmet with a handlebar mustache to work.
When you have a lot of resources and a lot of free time, this is what happens. But yeah, it's good stuff. So whoever did that one seems to have followed it up with, Rory Blythe installed hydraulics on his unicycle and bounces by all the ladies. So
that's just dumb.
I like that. Hydraulics on a unicycle.
Hydraulics on a unicycle. Boing, boing, boing.
So the next one is, what is infinity plus 1, Rory Blythe? Now I'd have to say that it is infinity plus 9,386 minus 9,385.
Ooh, that's a great answer.
You know what, though? I'm sure there's like some number theorist out there who would just debate with me all night about whether that's right or not. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's horribly wrong, but this is just for kicks,
Aren't you
right?
glad Jeff isn't here to say, but infinity isn't a number?
Actually, I wish he were, but... You know, oh well.
He's probably going to insert that into the... Go
the
ahead,
sound
Jeff.
guy has all the power in the
He
world
has
to
the
do
power
whatever
of
he wants.
editing.
Yep.
That's right.
The next one is, Rory Blythe, will you read this on .NET Rocks? No. I'm not going to do that. Forget it. Jerk. You're not the boss of me. I'll show you. All right, so that's it with the shouts-outs. That's the shouts-outs for this week.
So now we get to the true weirdos.
These are the weirdos. And there weren't many this time, which is weird because I had weeks between.
Now, just, we poked a little fun at Eric, but you've been doing this far longer than anybody. I mean, you invented this medium.
I don't know if I did invent it, but...
I don't know anybody who's doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad other people are doing it, though, because there's a lot of fun stuff going on out there.
It just is an interesting, fun way to see the weirdness in people.
Yeah. So we've got some weirdness here. Oh, Lordy, I can't take these talking dogs anymore. This is one of those interesting things because this person is at home and obviously dealing with these dogs. Now, is the person crazy or are the dogs crazy?
It's like Son of Sam. Bark, 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 bark.
Well, no, because, I mean, obviously a dog that talks is a crazy dog.
Right.
But a person who hears talking dogs is a crazy
He's
person.
a crazier person.
This is confusing.
than a
I'm
crazy
moving
dog.
on because that's just too confusing. So we've got another one here. It's what to do if people think I am gay. And I say, don't let them down.
Jerk.
No, you'd be surprised how many people like express their insecurities about people viewing them as homosexuals in Google. It's completely bizarre. I don't usually read it because it's one of those touchy subjects, and you know, I don't like to deal
live
with
and
it.
let live, we say.
But yeah, exactly. So I just say if people think it, then who cares? You know, I think my aunt thinks I'm gay, and I don't care. I'm glad I got that purse for Christmas last year, and I'm not kidding.
Whatever.
So the next one is how to clean toes. And what scares me about this is that this person has gone far enough along in their life that they can spell, they can write, they can use the internet, but they have obviously
search on Google.
Never cleaned their toes. They don't even know where to begin.
Right. Do we need a book? You know, should we be on Amazon.com? How to clean your toes?
So we got another one. It's what better reward can we get? And I like this because this is one of those like pat each other on the back and, you know, what better reward than feeding the children? I'll tell you what, money. Send me a big fat check. Jeez. All this sentimental mumbo jumbo. And
but, you know, think about that one. What better reward can we get? That's something somebody typed into Google for. What is that all about? What was that, search for? Seriously. Seriously.
That's the way most of these are, though.
I know, but at least some, cooking with pig milk, that's like a purpose there. Right. Even if it is weird. But that one just doesn't seem like they knew what Google was.
Yeah.
You know?
No, there's a lot of weirdness out there, man.
Seriously.
Seriously.
They should have used a Google web service.
Then lastly, this is the very last one. We've got blog exotic dancers Ohio. And it's like, how many disparate, totally unrelated concepts can we pack into one Google search?
So I want an exotic dancer that has a blog in Ohio. So this guy went to a strip club and saw the stripper who said, I'm really from Ohio and I have a blog.
No, he's trying to track this person
What's your
down.
email? Oh, I have a blog and I live in Ohio.
Just Google for it.
Just Google me.
Yeah, so that's Google Weirdos for the week.
Weirdos.
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 All right. So, as we said before, where the show isn't really going to be us talking right here, where we've already done the talking. We've talked to a lot of people on the floor, so let's just roll the tape and we'll catch up with you during the break.
Cool. These were suicides, so we weren't doing that. So they gave us this whole new level of functionality to give you in.
Well, there's got to be a whole 100,000 DBAs looking at the possibility for DB developers to start writing something.
Just like they did when XML showed up, they thought, oh my God, all the web developers are going to be working in my database now.
I just saw, I went to the Women in Technology thing, which was pretty cool, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there was a girl there who was a SQL Server database administrator who couldn't wait for this new technology because now she was in the same environment as the developers.
Yeah, that's true.
Visual Studio.
That's good.
All I know is Enterprise Manager, and I have no feel for it.
Well, we got 7 minutes to get to a session.
In the same spot.
7 minutes.
You going to that Yukon thing?
I think I'll go to Yukon.
I've never seen a Yukon thing. I would love to go to
I might be enticed. It's at 5AB. 5AB?
Yep. 5AB? Lead the way, because I have no idea which way that is.
It's got to be that way.
5AB was up the stairs.
So here is the Huckabyus timus in his natural habitat, San Diego. Here, let's move over here where it's a little less loud. How you doing?
I'm great, Carl. How are you?
Having a good show?
I'm having a great show in my backyard, San Diego, California.
Yes.
But honestly, I think you need a TV show. And it is my personal mission to make sure that you replace David Letterman. I sincerely believe that you could kick his ass. Is that good? Cut.
So you did some talks already, or are you going to? Or
you know what? When you're old like I am, you get to speak on the first day, you get your work done, and then you're done. And you get to party the rest of the week.
What did you speak on?
I did architecting and building smart client applications in .NET.
And
I opened the track. I opened the virtual smart client track that we're running here at TechEd.
Awesome.
Did the broad overview, Windows Forms, Visual Studio Tools for Office, Compact Framework, InfoPath, all the smart client application development offerings that we have in .NET. It's a great session. It's really fun. It was packed. I got good scores. I'm turning.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
It's getting a little loud.
What does that mean?
You know,
is that like one of
we
those
only have one
director
microphone,
signals?
and it's not very directional, so that's the problem. Yeah, so we were talking about smart clients on your show, on your .NET Rock show.
We were?
We were.
Okay.
I know that's your area of expertise, and
it's my personal jihad for the last year. Yes.
Right, and now what I want you to do is, for the 90th time and the 90th permutation, but the correct permutation, what is a smart client?
Okay, that's a legitimate question, and there's certainly
obviously
some
at TechEd there was some confusion.
There is some confusion.
Not TechEd, at Dev Days.
I'll give you my personal definition of a smart client is anything that is not a browser-based application.
All right.
Now that's kind of a weak definition.
Yeah.
Microsoft has become much more crisp in the definition of a smart client application. Partially connected or disconnected scenarios, using local CPU resources.
Secure.
Of course.
Yep.
Rich Windows interface.
Right.
.NET.
Right.
.NET, I think, I personally believe that the smart client revolution only happens with .NET.
Right.
And honestly, it only happens on the Microsoft platform. There's not a lot of competition on the other side of the house. And they compete just fine in web. They have great application servers. They have good tools. They compete just fine. Not that ASP.NET is not awesome. It is awesome.
Yes.
But there is competition. There is,
for
in my
intranet
opinion,
applications, they're way more appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is my opinion that clearly there's a golden path to pave for Microsoft on the smart client side.
Now, I'm a developer. I'm watching this right now.
You're the king of developers.
No.
You're the god.
I'm not me currently.
Oh.
All right. So for the developer watching this, geez, I don't need that. My head's big enough. I'm trying to kill my ego here, all right? For the developer watching this, I get that the .NET framework needs to be installed on all my machines in my company. How on earth do I convince my boss to do that?
Okay, so what's holding, really the question should be, what's holding back the smart client revolution?
And that is
and
what's
that
holding
clearly, that the number one reason is we can't, where it's been historically very difficult to get the .NET framework out to the desktop machine. And honestly, Microsoft hasn't really helped us.
Right.
So only
for
the savvy,
reason,
for whatever reason, whether it be political or legal,
right.
or it's the network guys,
but
or
they clearly
whatever.
know that it has to happen as well.
Right.
There's hurdles.
Of course. So only the savvy companies of the world have. In a smaller company, clearly, it's a lot easier to get the .NET framework to the desktop than it is in a very large company. But in the large companies, there are very savvy companies that have figured out that you can build a Windows app in half the time as you can in a web app, which is all about dollars, and they've slipped in the .NET framework into their SMS updates or their Office rollouts, or they've figured out how to do it.
And I met your friend from Pacifica Life.
Brad Sherrill from Pacific Life, who was a VP in IT there, is one of those savvy people who said to his network people, you will figure out how to get the .NET framework to the desktop.
Yeah.
And you will do it within the next 4 months.
Yeah.
And the way they did it is they slipped it into their Office rollout.
Sure.
It's a great story. Brad's a smart guy.
Right.
And really, you should be interviewing him.
Yeah, we will.
Although I'm a lot better looking than him. Hey, there's all these people, I think, waiting for me to sign the thing. Do you mind?
Too. All right.
Do you mind?
It's the bingo thing.
You're still there too, Carl.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, that was you playing guitar.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah. All right, I'll sign after Tim signs. So.
All right, cool.
Oh, there's a pen. There we go.
Free mouse for you. Nice to meet you, Chris.
Hey, so you just won the bingo. Hey, look at this, guys. It's Keith Nicholson and Billy Hollis having a talk about NASA and over-engineering.
We're geeks, what can we say?
What's up?
And Sharpies.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing great.
Having a good show?
Been fantastic. A lot of good people.
Keith, let me ask you, what was your favorite talk that you've seen so far?
Cabanas. I haven't actually hit the sessions. I've been hitting some different cabanas on SharePoint and on BizTalk.
Talking with the teams?
Talking with the teams right there. That's been the best part of it.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. So the cabanas are, not very many people can go there. There's like some couches and no microphones, but...
Couches, people hanging out.
People hanging
real
out.
Personal.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we're pretty crowded. You got to be up pretty close.
Right.
But, I mean, the people are there and they're making a great content.
And look at this, man. You're working for Dunn Training and Consulting. That's Mark Dunn.
As a matter of fact, everybody knows Mark.
So how's Mark doing?
Fantastic.
And you guys are doing great. You've got a lot of classes, got a lot of trainers, and
doing a lot of stuff, especially with academia.
Yeah,
it's been
right.
Really good. SQL group, analysis server. We're doing SharePoint now.
Awesome.
And the schools would be amazed what education is looking at doing with the Microsoft technology.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's really
that's really good to hear, because I was a little concerned for the educational market. And for the longest time, it was all Java. And
well, you talk to the professors, they'll do it, but the IT shops are turning around and are actually interested in doing it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
That makes it good.
It's great to hear. All right, man. Well, say hi to Mom.
I will.
All right. No, right now. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom. Love you.
There you go. All right.
And look, Dad, you too.
And you, sir.
Yes.
Hey, let's come over here.
Sure.
So the loud people don't distract us.
Get in front of the RD
It's kind of like the Antiques Roadshow, Not to say you're an antique or anything,
Well, I am.
I'm not telling you how to live.
I'm more than 25 years old. Been an adult more than 25 years old.
So how's the show for you?
The show's been really good. Logistically, there were a couple of things that didn't do well early on, but it's been a lot of fun. I've got more sessions than I've ever had at TechEd. We did a real fun architecture panel.
What are your sessions that you've been doing?
Well, let's see. I did a smart client architecture thing on Sunday, and that went pretty well. That was a whole day of various architectural topics.
Okay.
And then we did an architectural panel at lunch on Monday.
Yeah.
Myself, Yuval Lowy, Clemens Vasters, and Michelle Bustamante. And we did an on-the-fly thing, designing an architecture based on a problem. I actually presented the requirements and let them fight over the architecture.
Wow, that's cool.
And the audience seemed to really like that.
That's good, because they can see the thinking process of how you go through that.
And then on Friday, I'll go do some real code. I'll go do. I've got a session on advanced Windows forms and have a good time there. And then we have the Software Legends thing tomorrow, which is doesn't necessarily have a lot of in-depth content, but we usually have a lot of fun with it.
Tell everybody about winforms.com, and because nobody seems to know that it's there.
You mean Windows Forms?
WindowsForms.net. Yeah, okay. Case in point, right?
There you go, yeah.
WindowsForms.net.
WindowsForms.net is probably the best single place to go for resources on Windows Forms stuff. They have their Code Hero thing, and they have people who've written interesting controls, and a lot of my articles are actually linked on that site.
So it's like a portal, like ASP.NET is for the ASP team.
It is. It's very much similar to ASP.NET. They do. They did for a while have. I guess they still do have some people at Microsoft that actually refresh that content pretty continuously.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's good reasons to go. There are forums there.
Cool.
That are worthwhile, where you really can ask some pretty in-depth Windows Forms questions.
To tell you the truth, I didn't know about it until TechEd. I was actually talking.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was talking with the Microsoft group, and somebody mentioned it, and I would say, "What is that? I've never been there." So.
Oh yeah, that's on when they did the Software Legends trading card.
Okay.
I've cited that as one of the sites, as well as your site.
Oh, cool.
Franklins.net.
Oh, great.
I put WindowsForms.net as one of the 4 or 5 sites I thought people should definitely go visit.
Wow, that's great. Well, I was talking with Tim Huckaby, who kicked off the Smart Client track, and I was asking him the same question I'll ask you. You're a developer, you're watching this right now. you get the fact that the framework has to be deployed to all of your machines in your corporation to facilitate smart client development. Yet, how do I convince my boss to make that happen? It's a hard sell. The developers get it. IT doesn't get it. Is it fear? What is it? How do I do that?
Well, I have not had trouble in that area, mostly because I approach it more from a return on investment standpoint.
Right.
Because let's take a typical example, and smart client's not the right answer for every situation.
That's true.
But there are some situations in which it's really compelling.
Yes, especially like the intranet software, that the only reason they're not using Windows is because they're afraid of DLL, touching the machine, all that stuff.
So basically, you can, if you're talking about fairly straightforward corporate software, one of the reasons I found that turns on the management and the infrastructure people is they can deploy internal apps without IIS running internally.
Yeah.
That surprised me that was a consideration, but they really like that. But more to the point is the economic reasons.
Yeah.
So we just finished an app.
You got to talk in dollars and cents.
Yeah, 1,000 call center operators. They believe, based on their metrics, that a smart client is a minimum of 10% more productive for their operators than a browser-based system would have been. Because we can tweak the app to do exactly what the operator needs.
Right.
And they've got some throughput estimates that indicate that's a conservative number.
Right.
Well, if you do the math, 1,000 call center operators, 10% is 100.
Yeah.
These are nurses. Full-time equivalent, 60,000, 70,000 per year. If you're talking about everything that you pay, salary, benefits.
And that's a conservative estimate.
That's conservative. You're talking $6 to $7 million a year that a smart client saves over a browser-based.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about large numbers of people who are at that app every day, then smart client is just an obvious compelling choice.
Do you think people would rather use a Windows application than a web application?
Oh, the users would much rather use it.
Yeah.
It's designed specifically with their needs in mind, and you have enormous flexibility to do that. You also can have better security.
Yeah.
You can make sure that you can use their local Windows logon for authentication.
Yeah.
And that way they've got single sign-on.
Right. You can integrate with Office, for example, stuff you couldn't do, talk to Outlook and things like that.
There are just so many possibilities that you can, where you can make people happier, more productive. You can design plug-in architectures with dynamic loading. You can do very responsive data validation, so that when they find out something's wrong, they know instantly. They don't have to submit the page. There are many, many compelling reasons for high productivity apps that Windows Forms are better.
Now, what about the argument that, we looked at Windows Forms and it just seemed a little too primitive. The controls didn't seem really rich and robust, and we had some problems. What's the story for controls and development of Windows apps in WIDBE?
There's certainly a lot better controls in WIDBE, and especially on the data side. I think that the controls in WIDBE are a lot more compelling than what was in .NET 1.0 and 1.1.
Yeah.
But to me, I guess my situation may be different, but to me that argument was a non-starter because it's so easy to create controls.
Yeah, okay.
And so if a control doesn't do what I want, it is really easy to create controls.
So what's control creation 101? I mean, you don't start with a user control.
No, I inherit from a text box.
Yeah.
And let's say, for example, one of the best examples is a date control. Now, here's the problem with dates in both Windows Forms and Web Forms.
They don't bind well.
They don't bind well because in the .NET version of a date, there's no such thing as a null.
Right.
But in the database, there is such a thing as a null. Well, I took a text box, made it to format to dates, embedded a small image inside the text box to pop up a calendar for when people wanted to select, but made it very high-speed data entry, and also made it expose the properties to bind.
And this isn't rocket science. It's like a couple lines of code.
I did this in an hour.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2.
Yeah.
And so the lack of controls isn't much of a constraint for anybody who really understands object-oriented development. Now, admittedly...
And that's what inheritance is all about. You start with something rich.
Yeah, admittedly, there are a lot of VB6 style developers who really don't get the inheritance thing.
Yeah, that's true. But I think you and I are both trying to change that.
We are.
I'm on a jihad to sort of introduce that.
I'm really looking at doing a DVD series on object orientation, specifically to try to help VB guys move into that arena. Because there aren't any good books on it.
No. No, it's true. Practically
there are classes.
Speaking.
You have, I think, a class. I have an object-oriented class. But classes are very tough for object orientation because you almost have to readjust your thinking.
And it takes longer than a week.
Yeah, you can't do it in a week.
Yeah.
And when I'm teaching them locally, I usually teach 1 day a week for 5 weeks.
That's good.
Instead of 5 days in a row.
Right.
So I think that the Windows Form flexibility is so much more than ASP.NET. And, there are just, even though ASP.NET has reduced the amount of silly nonsense that you got to know by probably 90% over ASP, there's still weird things you just got to know in order to make it effective.
True.
And I think
casting, for example.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I pride myself in how to teach casting. And it's something that I find that VB programmers, your VB6 intermediate to advanced into VB6 programmers know nothing about.
Yeah.
Because it's inheritance based, and there's nothing.
They just don't.
There's nothing to relate it to.
Yeah. So I'm really looking at the smart client alternative. Certainly it's the primary part of development for every project I do. Although it may not be the only part. The current project we're working on has a web front end for people outside the organization, but inside the organization it's all smart client, except for the inventory piece, which is mobile. And all talking to the same middle tier.
That's great. That's a great point, because a lot of people think they have to choose one technology over the other for everything.
And that's a false dichotomy.
And especially if you build your objects correctly, your objects should do what your application does. Your UI should just be changeable.
Just a way for the users to have a view into
so
that
you could
data.
do both. For any particular piece of it, you could have a Windows version for your local users. You could have a web version for the people in the field.
Yeah, and typically the web version is just a simplified capability,
UI.
set of capabilities over what the Windows forms can do. And I find a lot of those kind of false dichotomies. People argue over, should I use remoting, should I use web services?
Right.
But, with a good architecture, you can use both.
You can use both, right.
And it doesn't take much more effort to do that.
Yeah.
And if you architect it with the right layers so that you're able to easily change from one to the other and evolve the data transport as .NET develops toward Indigo. So just some fairly straightforward architectural principles will make an app that I think probably will have a shelf life of 10 years minimum.
Absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. And that's how I design the code in my classes, is so that it works. We take it from a local DLL, a Windows application, a web application, a web service, and remoting, the same DLL, the same data set centric programming model. And you're right, with just the right architecture makes it work. All right, Guy. Thanks,
Carl.
It's been awesome.
Good to talk to you.
I appreciate it. And say hi to Mom for me.
I will.
No, right now. Say hi, Mom.
Oh. Hi, Mom.
There you go. All right.
Which mom am I saying hi to?
Your mom.
My mom.
Yeah, okay.
She'll never see it, but that's okay.
We'll see you around, man.
I got a little excited talking to Billy there. This is kind of an appropriate song to play after talking with him anyway. Anyhow, Don Kiely stopped by and we talked to him and Stephen Forte. And then we went outside to the bookstore where Don Box and John Lamb were signing their book, Essential XML. Here we go.
What's happening?
I'm sort of on the down level, the midway through TechEd, so I'm feeling a little bit of a slump. I'm kind of tired, but doing okay.
This is Wednesday, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So have you seen any sessions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A bunch of them.
Which were your favorites?
I guess probably the .NET Security and Yukon Security. Some real cool stuff coming and that you can do.
Is this stuff that you already knew or learned something? Or
learned a few things.
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of the new stuff is just how innovative some of the attacks are getting to be to attack your code. It just blows me away just how clever
like
hackers
what kind of
and
stuff.
crackers.
We're way beyond cross-site scripting now. Obviously.
Oh yeah, well, and part of it is new techniques, and part of it is just incredibly clever new ways of using things like SQL injection and cross-site scripting and that sort of stuff. And also, one thing I definitely did learn is that the validate request, it's so easy to defeat that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you just put a null in after the opening bracket of a script tag.
Hey, what's up, Forte?
I was just saying hello to Kiely.
How you doing?
My favorite man, myth, the legend.
And Pat.
Hey, what's up?
So, Steve, you seen any sessions?
I saw one session.
Yeah.
It was called From Interoperability to Migration. Linux and Oracle and SQL Server working together.
Linux and Oracle at TechEd?
I was the presenter. That's why I saw the session.
How'd it go?
Yes, Linux and Oracle. That's all I have. Linux and Oracle at TechEd went fabuloso.
Yeah, cool.
A lot of folks who are using not just a pure Microsoft solution. So it was...
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it was great content. And packed the house. Everyone was happy. A lot of questions. A lot of people. We used Oracle on Linux. A lot of people using DB2 on AS400. I mean, there were a lot of different scenarios. We showed enterprise link servers, seeing everything as a stored procedure, and then you're using SQL Client in your .NET application to hit these third-party databases on different environments.
Wow.
Worked great. So we had a SQL Server 2000 using link server to a Linux Fedora, Red Hat, running Oracle 10G.
Wow.
And all our Oracle calls are stored procedures. And then we just eventually migrated the database to SQL Server, dropped the stored procedures, recreated them with the same names, and the application didn't change a single line of code.
That is sweet.
It was pretty cool.
So what's like the major hurdle when talking across platforms like that?
Well, case sensitivity in Oracle was a big one.
Oh, really?
That took a day off our lives. I think it was just getting the drivers up, and we're using VPC sessions, so getting the IP addresses of the machines. It's a little easier in the real world when you have actual machines themselves.
Yeah.
You install the Oracle stuff on the Microsft, and if your networking set up properly, TCP/IP, it actually works pretty well.
That's cool.
It is pretty cool.
That's cool. So they obviously talk open. Do you SOAP for any of these transactions?
We do not use web services.
It's all TCP/IP and native
TCP/IP
drivers
and native P-SQL. SQL Server passes native P-SQL over.
Oh, great.
Yep. Wrapped in a SQL Server stored procedure, we pass T-SQL. It's kind of a pass-through query and access, if you remember those.
Yeah, sure.
Back in the day.
Well, you basically open a connection, you send some T-SQL, a stored procedure call, and that's it, right? I mean,
right. On your client-side code, you're calling regular SQL Server stored procedures.
Wow.
The only hurdle.
I get it.
The only hurdle is data types. Oracle has some different data types, so you got to do some mapping.
That's gonna be weird.
That's actually not as hard as if that's your biggest problem, then you're cool.
Would you like to see like Oracle data types in the framework?
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how necessary, but it would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or some easy way to map them. They don't necessarily have to be there themselves. Because SQL Server data types are not necessarily in the framework, but there's ways to map them.
Yeah. Well, cool, man.
Yeah.
So you gonna go climb any mountains?
Got a couple coming up. Mount Francis in Alaska next week.
Really?
Yeah. Then Rainier in July and Kilimanjaro in October.
Oh, I'm jealous. Man.
Someone just died on Rainier, so we're being extra careful.
Wow, that's good. All right, man. Catch up with you later. Interrupted you before. I'm sorry. Actually, Forte interrupted. We can blame him.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Forte's like that,
True.
I heard my name.
And it was in vain.
No,
it usually is used in vain.
No, we were talking about the notation program, Forte.
Oh, yeah, we don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. So what else have you been working on? Or checking out at the show? What's been...
Oh, well, I was just finishing going through the exhibit hall. It's great to see. There's a lot of really cool, innovative products.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is that I can't believe how big it is compared to the last couple of years. So I think that really bodes well for the industry.
Have you seen Code Rush?
Code Rush? No.
Code Rush? You got to see Code Rush.
Oh, okay. Who is it?
Just Google it and download it, CodeRushOriginalStudio.net, and that's all I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So I'll hook up with you in a couple weeks and let me know how you like it.
Another thing that Gary Cornell turned me on to is that looks pretty interesting is LookoutSoft. It's an add-in for Outlook for searching. But what's cool about it is it's a .NET app. And Gary was talking about in terms of people, .NET's been out now enough so that people are doing little utilities like that. And I have to kind of look at what they're doing with Outlook because I didn't know that you could really integrate .NET with Outlook all that well.
I didn't know either,
Yeah, so...
I actually use X1. X1 is this WinFS kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's how I search all my email.
Okay.
It just takes a lot of memory, but I have a gig of RAM. So.
Right. And the performance is okay?
Great.
Because I downloaded, installed it, and played for
as long as you've got enough memory, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try that again.
All right, so
otherwise it's just seeing friends and geeking out. And the parties, of course, have been great.
Yeah, yes, they have. Yeah.
So,
all right, we'll catch up with you later.
Okay, talk to you later.
All right, bye. We just happened to be walking by, and Don and John were holding up a copy of their book, which is Essential XML. Ooh, I like that.
You know, of all the books I've worked on, the one I worked on with John is my absolute favorite book, yet it's the most reviled book I ever worked on.
Now, why is that?
It was ahead of its time.
Really?
It talked about this notion of an info set way before anybody cared, and now, like, everybody and his brother talks like that.
Really?
I love this book. Didn't you love this book, John?
I love that book, too.
So
Which one was posing
this
on the
written?
cover? Actually?
That's me.
That's you?
I actually
great.
worked out for the photo shoot, and I insisted that, they don't capture my eyes. It was a big
when was this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
When was this written?
When did we write this?
2000. Year 2000?
Yeah, something like
I think
that.
it was year 2000. I think the copyright might be for 2001.
September 2000, so we must have written it early 2000, late 99.
I remember, it was the beginning of 2000.
We released it at PDC.
So who should read this book? Who should read this book?
Who should read this book?
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to know what XML is about.
Okay. Any developer, any
a developer, IT pro. No,
only
developers.
Only developers should read it.
Yes.
Okay.
And they should read it with an open mind.
With an open mind. Okay.
Yes.
Is there any swearing or sex or nudity in it at all, or
just the front cover?
Just the front cover. Oh, good. How you guys doing? Seriously, you having a good show?
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun to come back here and see old friends.
Right. You speak here?
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, on Sunday. So,
what'd you speak on?
I was doing IS6. So it was a migration to IS6 talk with the Microsft.com folks.
Oh, cool.
So that was a lot of fun because if you ever want to see a studly website, that's the Microsft.com guys.
Yeah. So what's the biggest thing? What's the main point? The biggest rah-rah thing that you made in your talk?
The biggest rah-rah thing that I made in my talk was probably, motivating why the worker process isolation model is the primary reason why anyone would want to move to IS6.
Okay.
The feature set and the reliability things that you have in there are just things that just don't exist anywhere else.
Let alone the performance benefit.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. So, all right, excellent. And here's Don taking a picture of us, taking a picture of him.
That's a little dinky camera.
Yeah, it is. So you had something to do with this show too, did you not? Oh, he's got a sign. He's a busy man, folks. So you had something to do with this conference too, didn't you?
Yeah, I showed up and gave a couple talks.
What did you talk about?
Let's see, I did 2 talks. The second talk I did was a pure folly talk. It was about devices, so we just wrote a bunch of code on smartphones and Pocket PCs, and it was just really light.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite part about that talk, though, was we use these devices called a Wolf Vision. You ever seen this Wolf Vision thing?
No. Yeah, no.
So it's like an overhead projector, but it's got a camera in it, so you can put your device on there, and then it projects out because it's got VGA output.
Okay.
So at one point, I was running some ATL and COM code to run on Magneto, the would-be builds of smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And Ori was busting my chops about writing COM code. And I spontaneously pulled down my pants because I was wearing my COM underwear. And I got my COM underwear up on the Wolf Vision. That was fun. I don't get to do that. I don't get to do that much, like at Microsoft during my day job.
True.
But we come out to a TechEd. You got a Wolf Vision. What are you going to do? First talk was with Doug Purdy.
Oh, good.
I was very sick because in the mornings, I don't know if you can tell from my voice, I got the flu. Mornings are very hard for me to talk, and I was very energy depleted.
Yeah.
But we had this great insight that we used to frame the talk, which I'm having a really fun time thinking about, which is that there's only really one program, and that we're still writing it. And when you realize that there is only one program, and we just keep adding code to it and trying to take code away from it, very very hard to take code away from it.
It's a monotheistic.
It totally changes the way you think about building services and protocols, and that was very fun.
That's a very good insight.
Yeah.
So, the talks that you've attended that you've really enjoyed?
I have not attended a single talk.
Okay.
I've been hole up in my room, coughing my lungs out.
So the book signing you're doing for Essential Com and Essential XML today, that's why you're here.
And Essential.net.
And Essential.net.
All of the essentials.
By the way, Essential.net, still one of my favorite books.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Yeah, excellent. Very clear understanding of the real mechanics down low of what's going on.
It was just me exploring and writing down notes as I explored.
Yeah, and that's the best kind.
Yeah.
All right, so sorry you couldn't come to the jam sessions. I know you're not feeling too well.
Yeah, had I not been sick, I actually would have shown up, and it would have been a lot of fun.
We're having fun.
Did David show up?
David didn't show up, but George was there. George and I were there, so we played a couple of songs. We didn't do any of the repertoire, though. We have to save that.
Yeah, I know.
About Polly?
What was it called? About Polly?
I did, and you know what? Okay, here's the deal. I was crazy long before it became a fad, because people are like, have you ever seen Monk? Have you ever seen any of this? A guy actually brought me a copy of some Monk episode because he really wanted me to see it, and I watched it, and it's too over the top. It's not realistic. It's like, I can't touch your hand, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like have to organize my sock drawer while, touching the handle 16 times or anything.
No,
like that.
that's a whole thing.
Those are that's OCD. That's beyond
that's
true.
I don't know, Roy. You sort of borderline that. Come on.
Look, if I see bricks that are laid like this and this and this, then I have to walk on the bricks going in only one direction. But that's where it stops, okay? I pick one set of bricks. And if I actually fall off and I step on one of the other ones, then I have to incorporate it into a pattern. And it gets really complicated. So I'm like, okay, straight brick, straight brick, straight brick. Damn. Okay, straight brick, straight brick. Okay, do that. Okay. And then it's like Simon, the game Simon, where it does the colors and the sounds and you have to match the pattern back. And it's
the funniest thing is when Rory's carrying a bottle of water, like in his bag right there.
I don't have one right now. I've learned my lesson.
No, you don't have one. But it's been, 5-6 times that it's like fallen out. And then you look, do the thing where you look like at the ground where the bottle is like, God damn it. Because it's touched the ground.
There's no 5-second rule for Rory.
So
no,
there's
5-second rules? There's no 5-second rule.
Where did that come from? Who made up 5 seconds?
It was probably me.
Of course, yeah. Bacteria don't wait 5 seconds to jump on your bottle of water.
Yeah, but bacteria is good for you.
Not all of it.
It strengthens you.
There's a bacteria called anthrax.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. Mix it with my yogurt.
This is definitely going to make a great movie, don't you think? It's got some good stuff. I really enjoyed walking around and talking to these guys, Billy Hollis and Don Box. Jeez,
yeah, it was a good time.
John
it was a really
Lamb.
good time. John Lamb.
Yeah,
I had known I met the guy today, and I was talking to him for about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and this was incredible. I had never had anybody do this to me. We were talking for like 30 seconds. He just looked at me very seriously and he just said, "Are you happy?"
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I felt like I had been slapped in the face with a wet fish. It was a very penetrating question, and he was sincere when he asked it.
He really wanted the details.
No,
or?
it was really something. Yeah, I mean, we talked for a while, just because. Well, I was telling him that the more I've gotten into blogging, the more I've gotten into writing, and the more I've gotten into .NET Rocks and everything, the less time I've actually had to code, and I kind of miss coding.
Well, maybe he's like, he
can sense it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's, it's a bigger question, like, are you happy in this business, working so hard, coming to conferences, traveling? Wouldn't you like to rather be home with your girlfriend, slapping fish around and doing whatever else?
Slapping fish around?
Going through
kind of a euphemism is that?
Going through your purse and sitting around. I don't know. I'm just trying some random associations here. It's not really working. The brain isn't firing fast enough.
That's okay, man. We got slapping fish around and fishing through the purse. Yeah,
I don't know. Whatever.
It's good times.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back after the break. So we'll pay the bills and see you in a few. So while we were at TechEd, we ran into a few people who had taken our class and had been wildly successful in their jobs, enough so that their bosses could send them to TechEd. That's pretty cool, huh? Well, we've been talking a lot about what we do in the VBNet Masterclass in terms of technology, but there's some more reasons that you might want to come out to New London, Connecticut. For the food. I mean, come on. We take you to restaurants every day. And I don't mean McDonald's. I don't mean Chili's. I don't mean chains. I mean, local restaurants that are great. Great rib joint, great Thai food, great authentic Mexican, incredible New York-style pizza. Hey, we have good stuff here. Anyway, check it out online at www.franklins.net and look at the VBNet Masterclass. As far as technology goes, it's all about, tried and true methods, patterns that have been used over and over again. And it's about a data set-centric architecture. If you're a VB6 programmer, you definitely want to check this out. 5 days of hardcore, not for beginners, stuff. All from my head to your brain. There you go. Well, anyway, also while we were at TechEd, we got to hang out with the data dynamics people, and as it turns out, we're we're greatly appreciative of all the evangelizing we've done about their product, activereports.net. We've also ran into a lot of people that we turned on to activereports.net and who thanked us profusely. It's a great solution when you want to do reporting, but you don't want it to cost an arm and a leg. You don't want to set up all sorts of crazy servers and things. You build your reports right into your assemblies, and they become part of your application. ASP.NET, Windows Forms, doesn't matter. Great reporting, very affordable, and also just absolutely fantastic stuff. All managed code, 100% .NET code. So check it out online at datadynamics.com. Now let's get back to our TechEd show right here on .NET Rocks. Hey, don't you go away. And we're back. And before we actually go back down to the floor at TechEd, I'd like to roll a little bit of the tape from Sunday night's Birds of a Feather session that we recorded called .NET Rocks Presents the Future, and where Bob Reselman showed up, and he was talking about how language is just so very important, and that very many programmers don't speak or write well, and writing is the way that you communicate with the people who design the software and who give you the business credentials for what the software is supposed to do. So this was just a really cool discussion, and I want to sort of roll that before we get back to the floor. Here it is.
Is that Bob Reselman?
You know it.
Hey, Bob, what's up?
Bob? Hey, man.
What'd you bring?
Let's see. Shirts and books.
Cool. Come on up here, man. Bob Reselman, everyone. Anybody read Coding Slave? How are you?
Well, I just came from 2 days of being indoctrinated.
Yeah, sure.
Carl Franklin.
Yeah.
I've seen you since...
It's been a while.
Since what a Hawaiian warrior.
Hey, I don't actually touch, but I'll shake. I'll air shake. No, wiping doesn't do it, man. Wiping just gets your sweatshirt germs onto your hand and to me. All right, so... But okay, so we were talking about this whole future of coding thing, right? And you've just been listening to a presentation on Whitehorse, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
Now, here's an area. Now, could somebody describe Whitehorse in some reasonable amount of detail in 1 minute or less?
Yeah, I can.
We'll do it. All right.
It helps you build web services with, in a BizTalk style kind of drag droppiness. And not just web service, but service-oriented architecture applications. Mm-hmm. So you instead of writing web services by hand, you define with shapes and things, and it's very BizTalk-like, and there you go. So it's a high-level way to both write them and reverse engineer them back into
shapes. And how does it work though when you're drag dropping? Because this is the immediate future,
right?
I mean, in terms of what's the future of coding, this is what's coming right down, almost immediately. So how do you actually do it?
What were your impressions of Whitehorse?
My impressions of Whitehorse was that it's a nice tool. Anybody from Microsoft here? Microsoft does some things well, and Microsoft does some things not so well. It's a nice modeling tool, and it does a lot of the XML SOAP transformations sort of automatically. The tape at the end. Oh, right. It was interesting. Yesterday we were talking, they were doing this whole thing about, this seems the catchword is no lines of code. The perfect program has no lines of code.
Which is exactly what we've been talking about.
Okay, no lines of code. So that's really not appropriate. What the real question is, how many knowledge points do you have to have? How many people here have ever tried to configure IIS and gone down 17 dialog boxes? How many lines of code is that? Let's see. So we got 17 dialog boxes.
Who cares how many lines of code?
How many lines of code? So I'm looking at here, and I'm all these dialog boxes are going all over the place. I said, so how many knowledge points are there? How much do you have to know to play with the toy? And with anything, graphical user interfaces are such that you got to know a lot to play with anything. Any complex tool requires a certain amount of knowledge, and Whitehorse requires that you know a certain amount of stuff just walking in.
So it does away with a certain amount of like the textual input, but then you have to replace that work with some knowledge of this complex tool.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta understand anything. You gotta understand there's no magic here. You gotta know a certain amount walking in. It does a lot of the interface code writing for you, a lot of these web service interface writing. That's fine. But what do you do? I mean, what is really a web service, right? And how do you program it?
So what would you want to see change? Like, how do you think it could be improved? Like, if you were to take Whitehorse and say, like, 10 years down the road.
I have another gripe. I'll tell you what.
Another gripe.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm at the thing this morning, and Steve McConnell was here. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dudes. And where are the dudettes?
We're at a conference.
Man.
We're at a nerd conference,
All right,
man.
yeah. No dudettes here. All right. So, isn't this the... yeah, really, I'm going to go back to L.A. Lots of dudettes in L.A. Anyway, so Steve McConnell, who right here read Code Complete. Okay, everybody should read Code Complete. He actually debuted edition 2 this morning. And Steve McConnell is like he's an important guy. He wrote an important book. Yeah. And one of the things he was talking about was that developers can't or shouldn't be writing requirements. That those are something else, requirements writing. And I was thinking about, and I started getting really sad inside, like really sad. And I'm thinking that statement really made me sad. And what was making me sad? And what it occurred to me is that, how many people here have read Moby Dick? Cool, all right. Well, Herman Melville went to a great deal of trouble writing the requirements for creating oyster stew, right? And if you can really, these are things they teach you in, supposedly in elementary school, is how to describe something in writing, right? But we've sort of done away with that. You don't have to describe anything in writing anymore. You can watch it on video, or you can make it into a cartoon, but nothing in writing. And so really the reality is the question I was asking is, why can't coders write? Why can't coders describe what they want? And that's really the troubling issue. So what do I want to see in Whitehorse? I want to see in Whitehorse the ability to write clearly. Right? That's what I want to see in Whitehorse. And I'm sure that's going to be a very popular feature that people are going to
What do you mean by that exactly? The ability to write clearly.
Okay. If you've ever done, how many people have gone to design sessions? How many people here get let back into design sessions? How many people have been kicked out of design sessions? All right, here's the thing. I call it the pronoun count. How many people have heard this? Well, this does that, right? Well, you take it over here and it'll write over there, and then maybe it'll happen after you call the method over here, right? Those are all pronouns. And as anybody's ever tried to design around a pronoun, it's very difficult. People really don't use nouns very well. So by that, I mean is actually the use of language. One of the interesting things in object design is actually to go through a requirement and take your highlighter, your yellow highlighter, highlight the nouns, because those are probably your objects, and then go through and highlight the verbs in your green highlight marker. Those are probably your methods, and then line them up. But people don't get that. It's a fundamental skill that's been sorely lacking since we did away with writing requirements that are actually looked at now. I mean, the SATs are bringing back writing requirements, but the ability to think is directly related to the ability to write, and the ability to write is directly related to language.
So I'll challenge that. I agree with what you're saying, but I'll challenge it at a different level. So programmers know how to write really, really, really specifically in a way that computers can understand. What they don't know how to do is abstract the problem out to the point that your business users can understand. They write too specifically,
right.
not specifically enough.
Right.
And the problem is that the business users can't take the leap from, what do you mean I've got to talk to this object that controls the printer font? I don't care, just print the damn report. And so have to make that leap. That's up to us. Right, so somebody has to be the clutch between those two, right? Somebody has to be the clutch from being able to define something at a granular enough level of detail that the programmers can dissect it down to something that works, and somebody who knows how to take and explain that at a high enough level of detail that a business owner can look at it and say, oh yes, that's what I meant. And so the skill is not the specificity or the writing, it's the type of writing that needs to be done. And those are two completely different skill sets.
Can you give me an example?
So, I mean, so if I'm going to describe the interaction of a set of objects that...
Okay, there's already a pronoun right there.
Right.
Okay, so give me a real concrete. See how we just went to pronoun?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, so that's the programmer level description, right? Is the interaction of a set of objects. And what the business user cares about is, I need to move money between these two accounts.
What's your name, sir?
Mark.
Okay, Mark. Let's go back up. First of all, you did loose typing, right? And we all hate. How many people here like loose typing? How many people here like strict typing? All right, so already you went up to a real loose type stuff, which is a problem you hit. When you talk object, you say, I really don't have any idea what this is. Right, so you're already talking loose object, and the business person is talking strict type. I'm talking money. Right? So it's not that, it's not about, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it's not.
So you're talking about there's so much emphasis on the tools, but what you really need, we're perfecting the pencil, basically, and nobody's teaching how to write.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And it goes, there's another interesting slide they did, too. They did, there's this thing coming out. I can't talk about it, but if you beat me up, I will. Being beat up is in Coding Slate, by the way. It's in Chapter 24.
More than that.
It's important to know that. But that they did this diagram, and they had all these different people in the enterprise. They had the developer, and they had the business stakeholder, and the IT domain, blah, 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 blah. And they had all these cross-references, except for one, and the business stakeholder only talked to one person. That was the project manager. And I found that very telling. Yeah.
One of the problems that you were referring to with programmers is they're so hyper-focused on solving the problem at hand that they don't even know if they're solving the right problem. And it doesn't really matter to them if they're solving the right problem or not. They have a problem that they can solve. That's the way they're going to solve it. So when your only tool is a screwdriver, everything's a screw, right? And that's been a problem not only with people that I've worked with, but me early on. I mean, you learn how to do something a certain way, and you want to do everything that way.
Just to hit Mark's point for a second, I just want to make the problem I usually have in starting or finishing any job.
Roger Daltrey.
I'm Pat Tormey, by the way, who's lost there. The problem I usually run into is actually figuring out what the business people want me to do. And that's a little different. When you're talking about writing, I'm talking about listening.
Well, that's all one. What about if it's all the same thing? What about its language? There's written language and verbal language. All right, and what if the manifestation of language is reading, writing, and verbiage? All right, I probably didn't do it.
Well, I just get, the guy that gives me my money is the guy that has the business problem. And to the point of how we write to the low level, that's the fun part, right? We make it a little bit more confusing.
But you got to make sure that you're turning the right screw the right way.
Yeah, I want the guy that he's talking to be happy.
Yeah.
Which means my problem is to get him to tell me what it is he expects, not what he said.
Right.
Pat, you just opened it.
Well, that's a huge problem.
Well, Pat just opened a big kettle of worms here. Are we technical enough right now? Do we need to get more technical? So Pat says, I want the guy to be happy.
I want the money.
Oh, wait. Oh, we got all these objects. So are we typecasting here? Did we just go, see? Wait. I'm not getting on you. I mean, you're doing good stuff here. You're saying, okay, so what is it in BB? C-type, the thing. Now we're casting happiness in the money?
I think that was a given, because money makes the boss happy, right? And therefore,
let me ask you, are your books free?
Money equals happiness.
Are my books free? Are my books free? If you can name the 5 republics that used to make up Yugoslavia. If you can name those 5... yeah, you knew that one was coming. No, you have to name the capitals, too. No. You study.
I need to get back. What is the requirements issues have always been a problem. I don't care how you make the code. How do I figure out what they're actually asking me to do?
And it's an intimacy issue. It's a cognitive intimacy issue.
I believe that.
That's exactly what it is. When you go home and your kid says, I'm hungry, which is a very high type, right? That's up there with object. I'm hungry. Give me food, right? You don't have any problem getting down to what's for dinner. Do you?
That's right.
Right. Yeah, or ask your mother, right? You delegate, right? Delegate to this object, right? But you don't have any problem doing that because you have a very clear understanding of how to talk to this other person in your world.
No, you do have a problem, though, because what they say on dinner, and you give them loads of vegetables, and they go, I hate vegetables.
Well, they're returning false. Right?
When I talk to business person,
what?
When I talk to business people, they actually don't really know what they don't know what they're seeking to. It's a very specific skill to be able to talk to a business person and understand what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. Because they often talk about what they think they want because they've seen other.
No, wait, but let's go back to your language. Language tells all. Language is everything in coding stuff. All right. So you just said I queried a business user, and I got back I don't know, the I don't know type. It's in there. It's under net too.
I
if you
unknown.
Do it, yeah. I don't know. I unknown. I unknown. Yeah, I don't know. That's what you got back.
It's a variant.
No, they know, but what
C type. I know, but I don't know. I mean,
no, you're losing me with C type.
Because
I think we must be talking. What I'm saying is that when you talk to business.
Oh no!
That crap, Scott Hansen, we're going to get heckled.
Scott Hansen, John Alexander, and Ken Spencer just walked in there. Let's finish the thought, though.
Yeah, finish the thought. Go ahead. Yeah, no, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. What I'm saying is when I talk to my customers and I'm working on new software for them or trying to figure it out for them, they often talk about what they want in the framework of the software they've seen before, most of which is very poor. And they say, I want this to look like this, or I want this to work like that, and I'm trying to achieve this. And you have to keep digging until you understand what they're really trying to achieve. And then you have to come up with a better way of doing it that involves them doing less work and gives them more value than they thought they could get in the first place. And it is very, I manage loads of programmers, and only a very small percentage of them are capable or able to communicate and do that job.
Have you been successful at it?
I have been. I was a coder myself. I keep my hand in now, but I manage about 25 developers, and I can see. It's everybody knows there's types of developers. It's a little bit basic.
Are you of the mind that a developer makes a better business case analyst? If you've come up through the developer.
No, not at all. I think it's purely down to the individual. I don't think it's a skill necessarily related to coding capability. It's a bit like, have you read the INETA Running Asylum?
Right, yeah, Alan Cooper, yeah.
That was a real kind of seminal book for me. It really made me understand how I was going about things back to front.
Basically, his assertion in that book is users don't know what they want.
Well, yeah, also, he was talking as well about how developers looking, it's improved a lot in the last few years, but developers look in terms of functions. So they go, I've got a function, print document, it takes 3 parameters, document name, printer name, so I'll build a screen with 3 boxes on it where you type them in. So they think from the bottom up and not from the kind of top down. Like, could I get the printer name from somewhere else? Could I, do all these things for the user?
So, but what I'm hearing, I guess what's sticking out in my mind is we're saying this is a problem that's been going on forever, or close to it, that not being able to elicit from the customer what the product is.
Well, this isn't specific to programming. Go talk to an architect and see how long it takes for them to go from what the user says they want to what they actually want when you put it on paper and put it up in the air. The problem exists everywhere. You need to put it in your paradigm. You need interop layers between these various communication forms.
Can you think of a paradigm where it doesn't exist?
Where the problem doesn't exist?
Yeah, where people know exactly what they want and they get it.
Software companies. Or Burger King.
Burger King. Press the cheeseburger button.
If you do work for an ISV, they typically know what they want better than any other customer. And they're less likely to freak out when things go wrong because they couldn't do it right anyways.
Part of the problem, this is a universal problem, and part of the problem is that if you've got a person like an architect and a person that wants a house built, the architect has this vast domain of knowledge, or should have, and the person getting the house built has another domain of knowledge, and they don't match. And so part of the architect's role is to shift the paradigm of the person over here who wants a house built to what's actually possible, and then they can have an exchange. And that's what we have in the application world, is if somebody's telling me they want an application to do something, it's my responsibility to dig a little bit deeper and then usually go through an iteration process with them to shift their paradigm from where they are now to some future point so that they can really articulate better what they want once they know what's possible.
And not only to shift the paradigm, you're absolutely right, but also to shift the language, because people will talk and they'll say, what I really want is I want a big room, open space, big high ceilings. Oh, you need vaulted ceilings. Oh, yeah, okay. Or cathedral ceilings. Well, those are different. And you got to get the feeling about what it is that they want, and make sure that they're using the right words for the right things, which is exactly the same problem I was talking about before, right? The programmers and the business people use different nouns and different verbs to express the same concepts, and when they say them, they don't understand that even though they're using the same nouns and same verbs, they mean two completely and wildly opposing concepts.
And by extension of that, how many times have you had the conversation with somebody who doesn't know the technical stuff and wants to speak in very general terms, and you just have to keep nailing them down to get more specific, and they keep getting more exasperated with you because they think you don't understand them, and you're just trying to be exact. And I mean, and especially if that person is paying you your money, paying you, that can be a dicey kind of conversation to have.
There again, it's where design comes in too, because one of the things we do, if you went back to database entity modeling, one of the things you do in entity modeling is to really define what all those terms are. And you spend an awful lot of time in that process. And so now if you go into the design board, you can build a domain model and really figure out what all those different nouns are, and then try to distill down that common vocabulary.
But do business people have that kind of patience for that kind of process? And the people that I've worked for, typically, if they don't see something on the web in 2 days, they're wondering what you're doing.
The problem is that everybody tries to do things 100%. They either don't do it at all or they try to do it 100%.
Right.
Usually if you apply 90-10 rules, so it's going to take you 10% of the time to solve 90% of the problem. And most of the time, like if you're trying to get the domain model, 90% of that domain solved is probably good enough. If I've got a few things on the periphery here that aren't, that's okay. And so you have to really move through a process that's fairly fast.
I went to the different problem, just to take it one level above, which Mark discussed before you came in. We were looking at how you actually figure out what the client's expecting versus what they said they were. And the problem I run into, if you've been programming a long time, there was a time when it wasn't nearly as complicated because you're working for one person. And they would tell you exactly what they expected, and you were done when they were happy. Now when you talk to that one person, they're actually the front person of a team of people who have existing systems that he's proposing that he understands. And I'm talking for a team of people, and I'm saying I know what they can do. So as the two of us are talking, we're actually representing other people in a much bigger sphere of things that are now very tightly integrated. And it's probably that integration is the thing that we can't describe. It may not even be in the room when you're talking to somebody. They may not even know they have this concern until we get to the back-end people that actually have I need to get the data into an Excel spreadsheet in this format. Or I want to export it typed and limited to my back-end.
That's a very good point. I could go back to a case in this very town. I'm from the East Coast, and we had a client on the East Coast that had an office here years ago. So I remember one time I was out here doing interviews with the end users for a new system. And it just so happened that some vice president was tagging along that day just so he could feel important. And I remember this guy in the office saying, well, every time we get something in, we fill out this paper. And the vice president says, no, you don't. The guy said, yes, I do. Here it is. And the vice president says, no, we ended that process 4 years ago. And the guy says, no, here's a stack going back yesterday that we just filled out. And so what the person that's talking to you that you're talking about thinks they understand about the system is not accurate because they don't have a true picture of actually what's going on in the area.
Well, let me bring this back to the future, and let me ask you the question. Have any of you done any work or used any tools or built any libraries or condensations of knowledge that are going to help you with this problem going forward? Or do you find yourself always having the same problem of nailing down requirements, using the same old tools, taking the same amount of time? Is there any...
As a programmer, as a unionized programmer, I can tell you that if I'm communicating ambiguously, that's entirely intentional. That's entirely the looser the requirements are, the better it is for me as a programmer. And if that's the best case scenario for me, then I have no incentive at all to change it until I get promoted into management, in which case it'll drive me insane. Because now I've got to fight that all the way down the line. But so the future, I think, is that somehow you need to make it worthwhile for the developer to own these requirements and to communicate non-ambiguously, because otherwise, if they don't think it's a problem, they're not going to change.
So how can you do that? Can you tie it to their salaries or something? Or?
Sure.
The problem is that you can talk to your user all you want, a given person, but Ken, you described it. You said you talk to two different users and they tell you different things. And what we really need is a common language that every stakeholder in the business who wants input in designing the system and using it, and all the developers can look to it and they can speak to it.
We call that UML, though.
We call it UML, and we have to learn from other industries. We have to learn from the construction industry and how they've matured much. I mean, they still have the problems that we do, but they're much further along than we are. And it's an engineering discipline. I mean, the problem they have is users don't know what they want.
No, why do you think the construction industry is not experiencing problems with that?
I said the arts, they still have the same problems, but they are much further along.
Why?
I mean,
What are they doing?
Well, it's an engineering discipline. People learn the language. Architects learn how to communicate with their customers.
Part of that, we're talking about two different things, though, because I think you need to look at construction as a sort of a horizontal industry. A 2x4 is a 2x4, a foundation is a foundation. Where if we took this audience here, we went into every company, in different industries, you could partition it out.
You don't go to your customer and you can say, I'm going to build your house with 2x4s. They say, I want a room that's this big. And there's standard rules that all engineers know that, they've got load-bearing requirements, you have footing requirements.
Exactly.
You have code, municipal or regional codes that say you have to build things this way. And there's standardized documentation on how you publish this stuff. And users don't always know it, but it's in a format that people, a customer can be easily bent to understand. And UML, I've had good success, particularly with use cases. I don't give them class models. But with use cases, it's a very good way of describing how a person interacts with the system in their language.
So I think that's the key right there, is not so much the UML, but that it's a use case, because you take each one of those use cases and then you can get into the very specifics of that vertical type of application. If they can't define in a UML type model, use case model, what they're doing, they don't know what they're doing.
I don't know.
So
if that's true.
wait, hold on. When we started this whole thing out, we were kind of talking tools, right? And I was obviously of the mindset that the tools were at fault, which is kind of funny since I just wrote a blog post making fun of people who think that way. But I mean, that is how this started, right? And what we're kind of arriving at is what I'm hearing you say is that there needs to be sort of like an Esperanto that people, technical and non-technical people, can understand and agree on. And in a way, that's sort of like where you'd like to see the future go.
Actually, there is another industry analogy which comes to mind. Man, I haven't had this much fun since Woodstock. Anyway. Yeah, whoa, the towers. Let's look at the film industry. I mean, software has a lot more in common with film than it does with construction. I mean, first of all, there's only one place I know where software really, really exists, and that's in your head. I mean, you don't touch, software, it's in the computer, but that's just a manifestation, some codification of ideas. So let's look at two directors, okay? Hitchcock, who would actually take his shooting script in, give it to the director of photography, sit in the chair and say, go. And Coppola, which during Apocalypse Now said, what was it he said at Cannes? We had too much money, too much time, we went into the jungle and went crazy. Now, both of those people created extraordinary films. So what was it about? And
it's a budget concern. I'll create something extraordinary.
No. Or you can take Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. That was a very low budget. Okay, and that was I'll say that's an extraordinary film. So what about in the film industry that they can pull it off over and over, and they have duds, Simeo, there's no question they're duds, but they pull it off over and over and over again.
But their user base is, they create something that's personal to them, and their user base shifts depending on what genre or director they are, so they're not targeting.
And thousands of people don't make it at all, right?
They're not targeting specific.
Well, and if somebody doesn't like your movie, you're not going to lose millions and bazillions of lives and dollars.
They're targeting the emotional response.
So the question I asked was not about whether it's successful. The question I asked is how come they can do it over and over and over again? How come you can have this, I'll get to you in a minute, this complete insanity of some shoots have up to, 200 people working on them, and believe me, the lighting person has no idea what the person in craft services does. They just have no idea. Yet they pull it off over and over and over again. So.
But they work. They work ridiculous hours and 7 days a week and stuff, which is not.
What?
Well, they have
There's a point about this. That particular industry, I think, because it has such a mass market, that if you get a bad producer, okay, then they're going to get weeded out. So what makes a good producer? I think we all agree that they can have different methods and all. And I think it goes back to what makes a good general in the Army. What makes a good general? Every one of them has different methods. But usually the best ones are ones that are leaders. So I would say that the people who are successful in the film industry are probably because we filter out all the crap. And we can do the same thing with developers. If we went out and we had this mass to sort of vote on who was good, all the bad developers go away, then the ones that communicate and do well.
So are you saying that there's no mechanics in the film industry we can emulate?
I think the model is not a mechanical model. I think it's a very soft model that has more to do with the leadership that's applied there. And I think if you look at the...
Have you ever tried to move a light on a set?
Well,
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm being a little confrontational. I'm sorry. It's a heavily disciplined industry. It's creative. Nobody plays games. There's nobody walking in that says we're not involved in a creative endeavor here. It may be this guy's vision, but we're all here to make movies, and it's highly creative. Yeah.
I think you're kind of talking on two dimensions: the creative side and the disciplined, structured code side. The construction industry has building codes. Lawyers have codes. Publishing has codes. The way you're talking, the production of a movie has codes too. You must rig the stage this way. You must have these safety precautions. That's a different side from the creative side. Scorsese is thinking what message he wants to communicate. The other difference, I'd say, between kind of those two parts, you have to have the creative side, the vision, but you also have to have the code. That's the best practices, the kind of standards, engineering standards, sometimes in law. The other thing is about I think between the creatives and the software, our clients pretty much are not just anybody. Or maybe that's a third dimension. If I'm selling commercial software, I've got to attract my buyers. If I'm working on a specs, then I basically have to satisfy that client to those specs. That's a custom built within a framework. That's more like the military contract.
Well, John Cleese makes an immense amount of money doing educational software. I mean, educational film. Educational film, yeah. He makes it. He's very private. He makes most of his money in the private industry.
It obviously works. Hang on a second. Obviously, someone has done it right. All right. Let's look at a company that does software right. Maybe we're talking about Microsft. Maybe we're talking about some other company. Maybe we're talking about Joel on software. Some company that does release good quality software again and again and does it right and learn from that. Who are we talking about here?
Quicken. Everybody has
Quicken, QuickBooks.
$25, and most people can use it without reading a manual.
How about some other examples?
Microsoft Word.
Okay.
But before we get much further, this kind of sucks, but the thing started a little late, and we actually have to go at about 7 because we have a Coding Slave dinner with Bob Reselman. So actually, if any of you wanted to continue a conversation very much along these lines, that would probably get a little bit hairier and weirder, especially if this takes place over alcohol in a restaurant somewhere. You're all welcome to come along. We're going to be meeting out front in just a few minutes.
I don't know if we're all going to go to a restaurant, but...
I was thinking of taking a playland at McDonald's Hospital.
That'd be a good
Bob wants to take a playland at McDonald's.
So what are some of the processes that you've seen out there that work for you? That's what I want to hear about. I want to hear what you guys have been successful with. Yeah.
Well, for me, I enjoy the fact that in software, if I make something, I can tear it down and rebuild it in a few seconds. So for me, it's prototyping and rapid application development. Most of the people I deal with have no idea what they want, so I don't even try to get a really strict, understanding what they want. I get a general idea what they want. I throw a website up. I say, is this what you want? They tell me what they like, what they don't like. I try another one. So I basically prototype over and over again until we come to something that they want.
You should just do it on an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
Drop and shake it up.
I don't even try to wire up. For me, I'm just trying to get the specification. That's all they ever look at.
And the comment, it's a good comment. It works for small projects, but for big projects, you don't have time to prototype the entire thing.
Yeah, when I worked at Microsoft, we didn't do it that way, but at the school district, I can do that because it's not a huge project.
What about big project software? What about the CRM, the big honking applications, the PeopleSofts,
I think you've got to break those applications down and treat it more as small separate groups. But I just wanted to quickly say before, I think in terms of the future of programming, I feel very strongly that at the moment we all program way too much code that's got nothing to do with adding any value to the business. So the future to me is eradicating all of that.
Yeah.
We should be spending all of our
I agree with
time
you.
adding
I
value.
see that as
Stuff
well.
like code generation, and although that's what all these wizards and tools are essentially doing, I think some of the stuff that I think Scott's going to talk about later on.
What about the application blocks? Are people using that to kind of...
Yeah, who's using the application block? Who's used the user interface process?
The documentation.
Has anybody tried to use the interface process?
Version 2.
Version 2 is good?
It's better than version 1.
Yeah, version 1 is a little... User interface process is a way to abstract the UI code away from the business layer. And it basically does your hooking up web windows, the plumbing code of the UI things, the binding and things like that.
Have you used it?
I haven't. No, I've wanted to get into it, but I saw a lot of people with a lot of resistance to it, and I thought, maybe I'd wait. So thanks for the tip. But how about the exception management block? Works good. How about the ADO.NET block? Yeah, that works well.
The only thing that's bad about it is only SQL line.
Version 3 is all interface based. So you can.
Oh, that's no longer done by Microsoft. That's open source now.
It's still though,
It's still...
doesn't matter where it comes from.
Which block?
Well, I was just saying that just excited talking to patterns and practices. We don't touch stuff.
Well, I think some gadgets really responsible for that right from the beginning, so they're still involved. It's not like changed people at all. But the 3.1 data is cross-platform, and that hasn't worked.
The question I want to answer is object spaces. Is this thing for real, or is this...
We can't talk about that.
It's public now. It's on the site.
What's public?
That object spaces is pushed to the WinFS.
Oh, it is public. Okay. Object spaces and WinFS are merging. How do you like that? So
I think it sucks, actually. But, I mean, that's
So
because I
they're
was looking
taking
forward to
the-
using it in 2005. But
So they're taking the object model not just for files, but for complex types and objects as well. Pat, what do you think of that?
I think they would have screwed it up, so we're better off.
it's the glasses half full point of view.
We would have ended up with something that did something, and everybody would have tried to adopt it, and it would have been like, the early versions of WYSI, which people are like, well, what's the final version going to be like? It would have helped a lot of people because they would have gotten something out, but instead they're going to just put all the effort into getting it out.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. I want to raise you to raise your hands. I want to go around. If you have a suggestion for Microsoft, for tools, for programs, for programming, anything, raise your hand. Let me know what it is. They'll hear it. Go ahead.
Improve Visual Source Safe or replace it.
Improve Visual Source Safe or replace it. I can't talk about that.
All right, good.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
So you guys always like it?
Well, I was forced to use Dreamweaver recently.
Forced?
They put a gun to your head, right?
Right. But, it does have a few cool features to it, some validation tools.
Yeah.
It seemed like that would be pretty easy to build into Visual Studio. So,
Yeah, it would be.
some HTML validation or whatever.
Yeah, the validator stuff needs to be improved. I think you'll see in ASP.NET a big improvement in that, but yeah.
I know they've done some pretty good stuff in 2005 for this, but I'd like the DS team to get with the SQL team so that when you write data stuff, it's all as efficient as it could be, because the SQL team knows how to write tuned queries, and obviously the DS people don't know.
Are you talking about like when you use a data adapter and it builds the selects and all that stuff? Well, actually, I have the answer to that. The answer is if they were to use, say, timestamp fields and things like that, you've got a tool now that's modifying your database, and until the database administrator is going to kick your ass if that happens. So they have to make a tool that's going to work across all platforms, but I agree that if it was SQL Server, they should at least give you the option of checking the timestamp and the where clause instead of all these. If you have 1,000 fields, you're really screwed. I agree. Yeah. Anybody else? Suggestion for Microsoft.
How about being able to drag, when you drag your tables into a data set, to maintain the relationships between the tables?
When you drag your tables into a data...
Right now, unless I'm doing it wrong.
When I drag the tables in from the Server Explorer, it brings in the primary keys, but all the relations have to be rebuilt.
Yeah, that's true. Building relationships.
Do you have a data modeling tool that you use to model your database?
No.
Actually, there's a schema designer built into Visual Studio. I haven't figured out how to make that work yet.
It's just XSD, so if you want to generate that model from your database, it's pretty easy to write your own.
Anybody else with a suggestion for Microsoft? Yeah.
Sure, so I'm not sure if it's addressed in WIPI or not, but I'd like to see the SOAP toolkit incorporated into Visual Studio.
The SOAP toolkit?
Yeah, so to analyze SOAP messages within Visual Studio as opposed to having to download and install some additional toolkit.
You mean into Visual Studio? I think that's kind of what Whitehorse is doing, isn't that?
I'm not familiar with Whitehorse.
Okay. Whitehorse is, we were talking about, a little drag and drop your web services, basically, with Visio-like.
What's the feature you actually want to see in Visual Studio? I mean, describe it.
I'd like to see SOAP messages as they go across the wire.
So something kind of like SoapScope, but built into Visual Studio. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's.
Although SoapScope is free for the sniffing functionality.
Although, but it's not incorporated into the actual IDE.
Yeah.
So I think this would be kind of a neat little add-on or extension to the IDE. So
There's VS incorporation for SoapScope.
All right, two more. Two more suggestions for Microsoft. Yeah.
I like to see like the WSDL EXE and the MS data generator provided as open source, so that way I can tweak it out the way I want to get better performance when I want to do. There's a lot of crap that gets made when I do the MS data generator. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I just want people to shorten it down. So it'd be kind of nice to say, here, do what you
Or at least some configuration.
Right.
Yeah. Good suggestion.
There's a good blog that somebody's written about how they wrote that and the classes they used.
Okay.
It gives you almost everything you need to know to rewrite XSD.exe.
You remember the blog name? Or?
Can we talk offline? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, and one more. Last suggestion for Microsoft. Anybody at all? Anybody? Suggestion? Anything you'd like to see better?
case sensitivity in C#, it should be optional. You should be able
no. Come on, somebody's got to have one more. All right, well, anyway, I'd like to thank Bob Reselman for stopping by, Pat Tormey, Rory Blythe, myself. Thanks a lot. Have a good show.
Well, that's about all we could salvage out of that recording. But there were some other things that we said in that one that we didn't get on tape, but we did get on video. So when we make Don Rocks the movie, you'll be able to see those, we hope. Anyway, as we were sitting there, Paul Sheriff came along. We talked to him, and then also after that, we talked with Brian Noyes. Both of them were really interested in the Visual Studio 2005 team system. So let's go back down to the show and listen to them.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how we doing, Carl?
What's up?
Not much.
Having a good show?
Great show here at TechEd 2004.
Yeah. So
cool.
Are you speaking?
Yep. Spoke with Ken Getz on Monday. We did our top 10 tricks for a killer web application.
Cool.
About 1,000 people. Went great.
Wow. Fantastic.
Good time.
You and Ken obviously write books and do teaching and stuff like that together. And
fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we have a good time. We got a booth here. So
awesome.
Yep,
TDSA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Having a good show?
I am having a good show.
Fantastic.
What talks have you been to that you really liked?
Oh, they had a really good one on the SQL reporting services, talking about the programmability. What is that?
Yeah, programmability.
How to program.
Right.
Yes, report
Who was
services.
giving that talk?
Was good. Brian Welker.
Cool.
He's the product manager. So that was a good one. Saw a couple of other ones.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, I know.
We're not bad.
I'm not ready to play yet.
Which electronic set did you get? The V
I got
drums?
the Roland, yeah.
They're great, aren't they?
They are awesome.
Yeah, I had a set of those. I sold them for real drums, but I loved them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get another set and put them in the house.
Yeah, I'll get an acoustic eventually too. But
you have to have a place though,
right,
to play where you won't.
I know.
Get in trouble.
You got to build something, yeah.
So what we're talking about. So what sessions have you seen while you were here that you really liked?
Yeah, the SQL reporting services was really good. How to program those.
Okay.
Went to the one on the team services, the White Horse stuff.
Everybody's been talking about the team services thing. That's like
fantastic.
Yeah.
The way they've got this with the architecture, diagramming, the data center diagramming, and then the class diagramming.
What's the data center diagramming, for example?
The data center diagramming is really cool because what this does, it allows you to lay out each machine, specify whether it's an IIS server, an application server, a database server. Then you have your applications that you already created. You then drag and drop each one of those on, and you can set constraints. By doing that, you know that, hey, I can't drag a Windows form onto an application center server or to an IIS server, for example. Really cool technology.
So does this sort of, does it take the place of the application center in terms of rolling out server farms and things like that?
At this point, it's just for the diagramming and getting a bill of materials.
Wow.
But eventually, they will roll that into there.
No
yes,
kidding.
That is the future direction.
So this is like the big kahuna for managing websites and stuff.
Absolutely. And for enterprise, they're going to have a new version of source control.
Right, I heard that. SourceSafe. The SourceSafe fundamental idea is built in there.
So the Team Server Foundation is what that's called. That's for enterprise. They're still going to have a version of Visual SourceSafe, but they're going to fix it up for the smaller shops too.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Some really cool stuff.
So getting back to the reporting services, I know one of our own, Bill Vaughn, is in that space, and he's writing a book on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the book's not out yet, but he's sort of piqued my interest in reporting services. What's your take on reporting services?
From what I've seen so far, we actually just have a client who we're going to do something with pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've been playing with it, I love it. I think they've got about 90% of the functionality that Crystal has.
Yeah.
And I think eventually they'll get all the way there and surpass them.
All right.
So, and it's a lot less.
Is it easy to deal with?
Very easy to deal with. Very easy. And it connects up to any OLADB data source. So even if you're using Oracle or Access or something else.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, that a lot of people think it's just for SQL Server.
That's right.
But it uses SQL Server.
It uses SQL Server, so you do have to have one server at least.
Yeah, but it doesn't require for a store.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Good.
Great stuff. Really good stuff here at TechEd this year.
So what else are you going to be doing? What are you looking forward to? Any new talks or?
Not really. This is pretty much what I came to see. And then we're just here working the show, being part of the RD program. It's real fun.
Yeah, and you're on the card too, right?
That's right, on the bingo card.
I
That's
think we've looked at that.
We have this. Yes, we do. I'm right there up above the star.
Yeah, the star.
That's right. Cool.
So we've been giving away swag here.
Yep.
And it's been fun.
It has been fun.
What about new products? Have you seen any new products while you've been here? Not Microsoft products, but third-party things?
Really haven't even had a chance to get around.
Have you seen Code Rush?
No, I have not.
All right. This is the new thing. I just learned about this a couple of days ago. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, from Scott Hanselman. He showed me a demo of it. Just go Google Code Rush and hook up with me in a couple weeks, and I want to know what you think.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do that.
It's a $250 plugin for Visual Studio that it's just unbelievable.
Neat. Yep, I'll check it out.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Catch you later, man.
Thanks, Carl.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Talk to the birthday boy here.
Oh, no.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
You're on .NET Rocks.
Oh, wow.
So say hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi,
She's
Carl.
going to be watching, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. She watches .NET Rocks or listens all the time.
So have you been speaking?
I had a Birds of a Feather session last night, and I've got my session on Friday.
So what are you doing a session on?
Doing a talk on deployment. Deploying .NET apps, covering no-touch deployment, setup and deployment projects, custom installers.
All through Click Once and everything, or?
No, I couldn't talk Click Once.
I'll step over here so we can actually hear you.
I couldn't do Click Once topic because of being third-party speaker.
Okay.
But
that's only Microsoft domain.
Right, for this conference at least.
For this conference. Cool.
Yep.
And what sessions have you gone to that you really thought were great?
I went to Tim Huckaby's Smart Client session. That was really good. Went to another one right after that. I forget the Microsoft guy's name who gave it, but it was another Smart Client offline synchronization data.
Oh, cool.
One.
So are there a lot of ways to do this offline synchronization stuff? Is there first wave of tried it and then that didn't work and now we have something else, or was it?
Yeah, I think what we really have is a lot of people have spun their own solutions.
Yeah.
And so the patterns and practices guys came in and came up with a unified solution that people can use that like all the application blocks, it's fairly extensible.
Now is that the app updater?
No, this is the offline block. It's a new one that just came out within the last couple months. It specifically addresses having a disconnected scenario, being able to gather data, cache it, and then automatically synchronize when you reconnect with the server.
Oh, so this isn't a deployment thing. This is an offline data thing.
Right, exactly. The updater is still out there. The updater application block is different from the app updater.
Right.
So Tim's talked about, he had a demo where he used the the app updater. And then some of the application block talks have talked about the updater application block, which is different.
Okay.
It's more complex. It's a little harder to get up and running. Like the app updater, you can probably get an app going in a couple hours at most.
Right.
The updater application block will probably take you a day to get things running.
Really?
But you have a lot more options on, what you can do and different update scenarios.
Is it really that complicated a problem?
It's not. I mean, to be honest, to go look at their samples and get something just like their samples running will take you a couple of hours.
Right.
But to really digest all the different things the block can do for you and how you can configure it and stuff.
But usually it's just a matter of finding which method you need to use and then figure that out.
Right,
You don't have to learn everything.
No.
Okay, that's cool. And so do you still think Click Once is superior to all of this stuff?
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Click Once, for the scenarios it was designed for. The biggest problem people have with Click Once when they see it is they're thinking of it in terms of a replacement for MSI, and it's not that.
Yeah.
But definitely for initially getting an app out to a client machine and then being able to auto-update it, it's definitely the best solution in the .NET 2.0 timeframe.
Now, let me ask you another thing about the application updater application block. I don't know if it's the updater or the application updater block or whichever one you said, but there was one that started out that wasn't using bits.
Right.
And another, the second version of that is the one that you should get because that's the one that uses bits.
The app updater, that is basically a little utility written by Jamie Cool, who's the program manager on Click Once.
Okay.
That one does not use bits, I don't
And that's one you should not use because there's a newer one.
Right. The newer one, which is the full-up application block, uses bits, and it has a pluggable, I forget what they're called. They're called like download managers or something like that, where you can plug in your own download manager. It comes with one that's just a straight file transfer.
Much more flexible, a lot more options.
More of a provider-oriented model.
I get you. Well, that's cool. So what else have you been doing at TechEd?
Business meetings, parties, walking the floor.
It seems like everybody's here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's the funnest thing about this. You can't help walking the halls. It's like, hey, how's it going? I've run into at least 10 different people that I've gone and done consulting with and haven't seen them since. And they're like, hey, how's it going? So,
and even people at Microsoft. We were just talking with Don Box, who was just happened to be signing books out there.
Right.
And Anders Hallberg was, sitting there signing books too. So we gave him an invite to be on the show. Maybe he'll take us up on it. He really didn't know that much about the show, so we gave him some numbers and his eyebrows raised up, and maybe he'll
that'd be good.
Maybe he'll come talk to us.
That'd be a great guest.
Grace us with his presence. So, and as far as talks that you're going to see that you're looking forward to,
let's see. Have to go check my schedule. There's a couple tomorrow I was going to look at. Yasser's got one on Yasser Shahud on web services on Friday I want to go to.
Cool.
Yuval's got one on security that I probably won't go to that because I know he's using the material.
Work with him,
and I teach the same materials, but that's an excellent one for people to look at if they want to learn code access more.
So this TechEd was spectacular. I wonder how they're going to top it next year.
I don't know. It keeps getting bigger and better each year.
It's awesome.
So, great location, too. You can't beat the location.
Yeah, San Diego certainly is cool. All right, man. Well, we'll catch up with you later. And
all right, great.
Keep on rocking.
All right, you too.
See ya.
See ya.
We got pretty excited about this team system, and I think this next interview that we did with Chris Kinsman, this is what the first. He was really the first guy to talk about it with me on the show floor, and he got me so excited that I went over to the team system booth, and we talked to the guys at Microsoft who were there demonstrating it.
How you doing?
Doing well. Is this another random video experience
This is a
here?
random video experience for .NET Rocks the movie.
Okay.
Acts of cinematography.
Kind of like my random appearance on Channel 9. Just happened to be coming out of a kitchen somewhere.
You're very photogenic these days.
Okay.
So what's new?
Nothing much. Just still doing the working thing.
Having a good show?
With clients. Having a great show. Talked to a lot of different folks.
Yeah.
Answered a ton of questions. Seen a lot of people that are really excited about .NET. So.
Yeah, Whitby. It's very Whitehorse and Yukon.
The whole Burton team system. I mean, that is so stinking cool.
What is that exactly?
So basically, Burton team system is taking a bunch
over here so we can speak.
Sure. Burton team system is basically taking a bunch of stuff you've always bought from separate vendors, i.e. source control, issue tracking, modeling, pulling it all together in a package and taking advantage of the fact that now you can do some interesting things when it's all integrated as one to get some great ideas of where
Team
a project's
management.
at and point.
All right, so this is what we were talking about at the Peer Summit.
Yep, exactly.
And so now there's some software to address
So you go
that.
ask a guy and you ask him, how's your project doing? And what's his answer going to be?
Yeah.
It's going okay. And what does he look at? He's going to go and look at maybe, how far along are they on items in the spec, or how many bugs are currently outstanding.
Right.
But he really doesn't have an idea of what the velocity is, how much code is currently being checked in, how much new code versus how much churn in terms of fixing bugs.
Right.
There's really no tools today for that, and Burton's going to do a ton of that stuff, so I'm totally psyched about it.
So you have a team of developers. You really have to check this out.
Yes.
How is the team stuff, the interactivity between the team members and the managers work? I mean, how's that?
It's got basically an entire workflow system. So I don't know if anybody saw Rick LePant's demo. You probably didn't if you're watching the video. But, where somebody comes up with an issue, it's entered in the issue tracking system. It can be assigned to a developer. It comes up on a to-do list for the developer. The developer checks out files, makes the change, associates the check-in with that work item. So you have a relationship between the actual work item and the checked-in files.
So this is like the new source save killer.
But with workflow, essentially.
Workflow.
Figuring out how it kind of moves through your development process and goes from a program manager to a developer to a tester and back to a PM and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so sweet. This is the stuff that we couldn't talk about back then.
Exactly.
So the cat's out of the bag.
Exactly.
And
Gotta
it's
go
called
check it out.
Burton Team.
Well, it's called Visual Studio Team System.
Okay.
Code name was Burton.
Oh, okay. Visual Studio Team System.
Yep.
We're going to talk to those guys. So are you speaking at the show?
I am speaking at the show. I'm doing a session this afternoon on .NET performance and scalability. So that'll be very fun.
What's the big issue there?
The big issue there is...
The main point of your talk.
My main point would be don't wait until you ship the product to deal with perf and scale. So a lot of it is more about the process than specific tips and tricks that you'll do to improve performance. So
that's excellent.
Anyway.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
I think really first by that and funded by NV because all the stuff it's the big market. Because it is actually the center of the universe. Yeah, precisely. That's the irony of the whole thing. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a user group in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is about 60 miles west of Toronto. And it's wildly successful simply for the fact that it's not Toronto. And that area is
So everybody's been talking about this new Visual Studio 2005 team system. And so here are you guys.
That's right.
This is David.
I'm David Staley. I am a test lead for the test tools in
Test
Visual
lead for the
Studio
test tools.
2005.
So there's a lot of stuff. I've heard that there's Visual Source Safe Replacement Killer, whatever it is. There's like all sorts of collaboration stuff. And you are?
I'm Amit Ghosh. I'm a developer in the work item tracking development team.
So you guys know all about this thing. So tell me, what are the different subsystems of team systems?
Okay, there are a few. As you mentioned, there is work item tracking, which Nick can talk a lot more about.
All right, so that's like bug defect tracking thing, or is that
defect tracking? There's more to
there's
it.
task requirements. So essentially, you can define your own types and track them. Work item is a generic name for any item of work.
Oh, okay.
Could be bugs, could be
Could
tasks.
be bugs, could be files, could be
Could be requirements and so on.
Requirement. Wow. Okay. So
another subsystem is unit testing.
Yeah.
You can
people who use NUnit now.
NUnit now, there will be some sort of conversion thing, but it's very similar to NUnit.
Very similar.
We've got attributes for unit testing, but besides unit testing, there's web testing, there's load testing.
Ooh.
There is even extensibility. So
if you're using something like ants,
there will be mechanisms for rolling your existing testing infrastructure into this framework, so you can do it right within Visual Studio or from the command line.
Wow, sweet.
And then after all those tests run, you can get incredible reports about test pass-fail rates, code churn from.
Do those require the reporting services?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
All right.
But besides that, there's There's the new source control system.
Right, which is the thing I was talking about.
Right.
The source safe killer, because people, have had enough of that.
Yeah. Well, we'll actually ship a 2005 version of Visual Source Safe with some good improvements in it as far as scalability and performance.
But this new thing is all managed code. I take it it's all new.
It's all new. It's what we use in Microsoft for our source control for Windows, for Visual Studio.
The new thing.
It's the new thing. It's proven. It's scalable. It's for big teams.
Great. Anything to add to that?
Anything to add to that? We have a bunch. There's people in the next booth, but they have a lot of modeling tools.
Yeah.
So you have architectural models, and you have code models and code diagrams and so on. You can do a lot of that.
Yeah, you can actually create a diagram of your code and architect it that way.
Yeah.
But then create another diagram of what your deployment IT infrastructure will look like.
Yeah.
And then validate the two so you're sure that they will match, and actually set security configuration and all that sort of thing on your design so that you can validate that those things will work.
Huh. Wow.
I might also add that a few other things we're adding are profiling, so you can profile your code, make sure it performs really well.
So it's not just team system. I mean, there's stuff in there that every individual programmer can use as a tool,
That's
obviously.
right. Developer tools, too. There's also static code analysis. So as you build your software, besides just getting compiler errors, it'll identify security holes you might have missed, like buffer overrun things, and it'll warn you before.
I thought there was no such thing as buffer overrun. Oh, okay, in compiled .NET code, but in your code you could certainly...
We didn't think that there were buffer overruns until we heard about the Slammer virus.
Okay.
It's just a new discovery.
Oh, all right, okay.
And now we're tracking those things.
Wow, so plug in all the holes.
Yeah, these are the same tools that we've been using in Microsoft for years. Plus added a lot of security
So let's say, answer me this. So I'm a developer, I'm working on a class. Another developer in another building is working on a class that inherits from my class. If I make a change to my base class, how's that guy going to know, that I made a change that's going to affect him? Is there any sort of way that you can tell what affected what and who is, what are the dependency tracking, that kind of thing? Is there...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in the visual diagramming that would work out. But in addition, if that developer had a work item that said develop this class, and he added the things to it, as he finished his task, he could create, and tell me if I'm wrong, he could create a new work item and assign it. Why don't you explain it? He could assign it to the other guy.
Okay.
Right. So what you can always do is Sorry? Okay, yeah. So with the team system, since the source code control system and the work item tracking system are very tightly tied together, so you can associate with any change you're submitting into the source code control system, you can associate a work item with it, right? And you can also say that, when you're making a certain check-in, you actually create a new work item for for some other developer
and that
to say
becomes versioned.
Yeah, and that becomes version. So we track history for every work item. So we have historical integrity.
All right. So when the other guy checks in, he's going to see that work item has changed.
Yes.
Blah.
Yeah, and you could also do something like, say, I have a work item assigned to me. I make some change related to that work item.
Right.
I then assign that work item to another developer so that he can do his part of what is needed. There is also stuff in the source control system where there are events which the source control system generates for every action which happens to it.
Wow.
So you can actually write your own, you can write something which will subscribe to those events, and you can say that, when a certain check-in is made into a part of the tree, send me an email or do some other action.
Some alert, that's cool. So it sounds like this is for big teams, but what about for small teams? Can small groups of 8 or 10 developers use this and utilize and get benefit from this?
Sure. So since the scope of the product is not just the developers, it's also the program managers or the marketing people who are gathering requirements. So they gather requirements in project or in Excel, right?
So you snuggle up to Microsoft Project then?
So we integrate with the project client in version 1. And we have a bidirectional sync from project into our work item tracking DB.
Now, what about test? Whatever happened to Microsoft Test? I mean, that's like a product that
I remember using that a long time ago.
Yeah. It's an older program, but we've added tools now for testing that really make the tester's life a lot better.
Okay.
Testing now is a first-class citizen in Visual Studio. So as you create tests, they'll show up in a window we call Test View, and they can all be managed and categorized in a window we call Test Explorer.
Okay.
But besides just helping you create tests, for example, you can right-click on a class and say, create tests, and it'll generate a skeleton unit test for all of your methods.
Really?
But imagine this. You run all of your tests, and it shows the results there right in the IDE.
Yeah.
If a test fails, you can right-click and say, create bug, and right from there, it'll attach.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, you can attach the test failure to the bug.
Wow, that's awesome.
So then the developer can open up the bug, see the reproducible case, and be able to fix the problem by stepping down through the test case.
It sounds like you guys took a 60,000-foot view of this whole process and really addressed everything together.
It's going to save everybody a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then the project lead, of course, can see a current status of all the work items in the whole system and see all the reports we generate for you. So it's like up to the second, no status reports, all the good stuff.
Well, let me ask you what your favorite .NET audio talk show for .NET developers is.
Oh, there's no question. It is .NET rocks. Bad to the bone, baby.
All right, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, well, as I said before, I think it's going to make a great movie. We're going to sort of wrap all these things up together and turn it into a short film, or maybe not so short, actually.
We could put it up in segments, just for kicks. It's what's great about it is that it's sort of like a way of getting people inside of the conference.
Right.
I mean, it's not just getting like the videos of what's going on stage.
There's actually
not just
nothing
getting the
there
sessions.
about the sessions.
Yeah, we're not doing the sessions. We're doing like what happens when you're just walking around and you just happen to bump into Don Box.
That's right. And I mean, I'm walking around as an attendee. I don't have any more access to these people than you would if you came to the conference.
Right.
We just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and we bumped in. I mean, everybody's here, so.
Yeah.
So it's been a good show. So I guess the next time you're going to be in Portland. You're back?
Yeah, back in Portland. I did move back. I guess I haven't really announced that.
No, you really haven't.
On the show yet. So I guess for those of you who are curious, I came back because I didn't adjust well to small town living. I'm kind of used to a town that in terms of population is about 40 times the size of New London. And I just what I realized is I found myself...
You went stir crazy, basically.
Well, I found myself alone at night with my own thoughts. And you don't want to get caught with these things. Yeah, no, you don't want to deal with it.
How would you like to be alone, listeners, alone at night with Rory's thoughts? I don't think I would want to.
Well, you know what, though? They couldn't be because I'd have to be there with my thoughts. It'd be even creepier, though, if they could somehow get out and... Well, you see, this is what I'm talking about. That's kind of a creepy thought. And I had to be alone with that.
I wouldn't want to be sitting there,
So, yeah, but I had a good time. I got to see the East Coast. I got to go to New York.
You missed your girlfriend,
too,
and you missed your grandma. And
I missed the family thing. And plus, I had other things going on the West Coast and everything. So it's...
And plane tickets are only $300, so you'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back.
So basically, we're going to be doing the show with you remotely for a few times. And, well, I say a few times. You're going to be on Skype or the phone or something like that for a few times. And we're going to invest in some equipment. It's going to make you sound a little bit better than the phone.
It's cool, geeky stuff.
Absolutely geeky. And we'll share that with you guys. So, but until next time, I would say, sayonara and come to TechEd next year.
Yeah.
It was fun. And for those of you who did come, it was fun talking to you and meeting you. So I guess until next time and, come to TechEd next year. And for those of you who were at TechEd, I'm glad we got to meet and hang out. And, we're off to DevTeach in Montreal pretty soon here. And PDC next year and, all those other conferences, Dev Connection. So we'll see you on the flip side. Take it easy. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, I'm a toy boy. Life is hard. Pay my taxes with my credit card. Whoa.